Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. Now, it's the moment in the sun for the Dendrobium Nobile star class. So I thought I would jump on here and give you a little closer look at this, and perhaps we'll get it over onto the bench over here and we'll have a little chat about its care needs and how we've managed to get this fantastic cane of blooms. I guess you could call this a mass blooming. It's certainly the best blooming I've had on this thing. I've had it probably 3 years now. So let's get it over onto the bench and take a closer look. And we're in. Okay, so I'm going to put this forward as possibly one of the most easiest to care for orchids for beginners. Now, as some of my subscribers will know, that I've been probably a beginner, I think, for certainly the last 12 months, even though I did have a few orchids prior to that. I would still class myself as a beginner, actually. My greenhouse has been running for just over a year now. This was one of the first batch of orchids that I bought. I actually joined an orchid society and I couldn't get to an auction, so I give somebody some money who very kindly bid for me, and this was one of the things that he bid on. Now, this was looking in an horrendous state when I first took it on, and at the time I knew absolutely nothing about orchids, and I did with it what I would have done with a temperate plant, and that didn't make it look any better. So how have we got to the stage that it's in now? Well, I still don't think it's looking, as absolutely best as it possibly could. I wouldn't say it's in an optimal shape, but that's certainly the best blooming that I've ever had on it. You can see quite clearly this great big cane full of blooms, and there's still some more to come just down at the bottom there, some more buds to come. Just by putting my hand there, you can see how long this cane is. It's probably about 1.5 foot long from top to bottom, and with some software I'll zoom in onto the blooms, and you can see they are quite delicate inside, like a delicate yellow inside. Most of them have a little tinge of lilac or purple right on the edge there of the petals. If I just turn my head around, that's actually, no, there's the sepal. Yeah, it's just on the petals, the lilac, not on the sepals. And then you've got the lip at the bottom, and even that's got a little tinge of lilac on there as well. Really, really nice plant. Very big dendrobium, and it does flower sporadically. It flowers right throughout the winter. Doesn't really like it. I think it's probably more of a sign of stress in my situation, because I let the temperatures go a little bit too low, and as a response to that, it produced some blooms. But what was happening was the inside, this labellum here, tends to either rot off, or it's quite prone to botrytis if you let the temperatures get too low. And I've got several canes at the back there. That cane there is also about to do a mass blooming, and it's already started off on its blooming. So what I'll do, I'll take it out of this pot. The problem is it's so big, it can be quite top heavy. If you can hear a lot of noise in the background, we're having the most bizarre weather. We've had temperatures of well over 30 degrees Celsius, and then it's just gone straight into like October winter type of weather. Really bizarre for this time of year, considering it's nearly July. So you can see that even this back cane has got a lot of blooms on it, and there's plenty more to come. It really is the nicest this has looked. Very, very much well worth a good look at. So it's not all good, because there are signs. I don't know if you can see. I'm just trying to look into the camera as well. You can see like blackening on some of the leaves. Just trying to rub. Some of it will rub off actually. Some of that is a little bit of it must be some kind of fungus, I'm guessing. There are some blackened leaves which I'm thinking are probably from being a little bit too much bright light, a bit too much in the sun. I have got it in a sunny spot. They do like bright light, but the sun can cause a little bit of damage, just as the cold can cause some damage. And if I just lift the pot up here, you can see how tightly packed the roots are in there, and they do prefer to be quite pot bound. And I repotted this once when I first got it, and I actually cut a lot of these old canes off. It is a bit of a keiki machine, and it does produce lots of keikis which are very easy to pot up. There's one here that could come off. There's another one there. I'm not keen on the keikis. There's another one. Hang on. It's so big, it's really difficult to maul about with. That's a keiki there coming off there. Roots already on it, but it's nowhere near as many as when I first got it. It was absolutely covered in keikis when I first got it, and I did pot a couple up. But at the end of the day, you start thinking to yourself, well, why do I want loads of keikis? I just want a really good specimen plant. I don't want lots and lots of little immature plants. So the title of my video was possibly the easiest one to look after, the easiest orchid to start with for a beginner. So what I will do, I will just talk you through a couple of the things that makes me say that, which obviously involves some of its care conditions. So there are many varieties of Dendrobium. I've only recently realised that star class is not really its full name. I don't know what its full name is. If anybody knows what this one is. So star class is a little bit like how you have the Phalaenopsis type Dendrobiums, the Sarnook, and Dendrobium Sarnook. The Sarnook refers to the hybridizer. So if you have a Sarnook Dendrobium, then there will be another name for it that differentiates it from other Sarnook Dendrobiums, and I believe that's the same with this star class. I just knew it as star class. So if anybody knows what this particular one is, I'd be really interested to know. It is scented. You do need to get your nose right up to it to smell the fragrance, but it is quite a nice fragrance. I've already said it does tend to be prone to producing keikis, which I do tend to cut off after a while, because I'm not really keen on seeing loads of keikis and roots hanging off it. It comes from a climate very similar to the UK, in fact. The information that I read said that it was similar to a Swiss climate, which isn't that different from over here. Fairly warm summers, but not too hot. Cold but dry winters. Now, we don't have the dry winters, but if you keep it in a house, obviously you can then keep it dry. But that does mean that it needs to be kept drier and cooler over winter, which isn't something that I think is difficult to provide if you live in the UK. They like a nighttime drop to get them to bloom properly. A nighttime drop in temperature, again, something that occurs naturally anyway in the UK. It is an epiphytic orchid, and it comes from various parts of Asia, Himalayas for example. Humidity over 50%. If you get high humidity than that, then it will definitely need ventilating, but it is because it is prone to funguses and botrytis. And just rubbing one of the leaves there's a bit of kind of black soot coming off it, which I guess is one. It could be a sign of botrytis, or it could just be a sign of some kind of other fungus. Potting mix, I would put it into, in my environment certainly, like an open bark perlite mix. Maybe I find it dries out pretty quickly, so maybe stick a little bit of sphagnum in there. I didn't on this occasion when I first potted it, but I will do next time. One thing that I did read was they're not really that bothered about you taking all the old media out from between the roots. You can just pot them up. I think that's probably what I did when I first got this 2 or 3 years ago. I may, when I do it again, I may try and get some of that media out, because looking at the media on here, I'll just try and lift it up. The media in here, it does look like it's quite a fine, kind of rotted, broken down mix, which over time won't be good for this orchid. As any orchids really, it will eventually create more of an acidic environment, which of course will then mean that it won't take up as many nutrients. You can feed them on a regular basis, but I certainly wouldn't do that over the winter months. So yeah, as regards resting them, it does in the wild get like a drier, cooler period. And again, in my greenhouse here in the UK, it's going to get that anyway. It's going to get a cooler period. It doesn't like to go below 10 degrees. I've had it down to about 7. Again, that might be another reason for some of this spotting on the leaves. Fortunately, the newer leaves and the new canes that come up don't seem to have this, so it's obviously not running through the plant. It's something to do with the environment. Just lifting it up there and showing some of the newer canes, and those leaves are perfect. It just kind of develops over time. I'm really struggling to, it's such a big plant, I'm struggling to show you various parts of it, but I mean it certainly is a showstopper for me anyway. In terms of watering in my environment, mine does dry out very, very quickly, but it doesn't show that much signs of stress if I forget to water it. And this is why I say it's easy, because it's not very sensitive to whether I keep on top of the watering, whether I feed it. In other words, I can treat it rough, I can neglect it, and it still does this for me. You know, what more could you ask for? Temperatures, it prefers above 15 to about 25 degrees Celsius, but as I say, I've had it down to about 7. In the future, I intend to keep it above 12 degrees. I'm not going to let my greenhouse fall below 12 this year, because all my problems that I had was when I let it drop below 12. So we're gonna keep at that. Gosh, I can't believe how windy it's gone again outside. We've had temperatures of 30, 32, 34, and then it's gone down to 12, and it's blowing a gale again. So once the winter months have passed, you can resume watering it again. You can resume fertilizing it again, and hopefully you should also get the same kind of display that I've got this year. And because it keeps throwing up all these new canes so easily, it's definitely worth having a look to see some of these older shrivel canes, whoops, and then just chopping them off and thinning it out, because otherwise you'll end up with that many. I think I did, when I think back to a couple of years ago, I got that fed up with all these canes all over the place with nothing on them. I just cut some either right at the top because they were too long, I cut them off, or I cut them down at the bottom. It's fine, it's quite happy, it's come back and it's put on a wonderful show. So I think what I'll do, I'll just pick you up. It's probably easier to pick up the camera and look rather than move the plant round in a circle. And it can be prone to spider mite. That's just something that's just kind of popped into my head because I'm just looking down and I might be able to see some. I have to give it a spray. Yeah, it got some kind of mite on it at some point, and I'm not sure whether it was spider mite or whether it was like a cyclamen mite. It also could have been botrytis. There was various signs of it. There was signs of it on that lip in the middle of all the blooms. There was also, which could have been, I mean, you very often find that various pathogens, whether it's a pest or whether it's a fungus or whether it's a bacterial disease or whether it's a virus, the outcome is the same. So what you tend to do, or I tend to do anyway, is try and treat these things with everything so that we something gets it, whether I give it a spray of insecticide or whether I treat it with some kind of fungicide or raise my temperature or whatever. You know, you try everything until it works, don't you? But yeah, it did have an attack of spider mite, and I treated it with insecticide, and that worked fine. It was a systemic one, I have to say, and with a lot of my plants the systemic spray has produced various mutations. On this one it hasn't done, so that's something that you know in future it is tolerant of systemics. But looking at the top, I think what makes me think that it's the sun that's causing this blackening, it tends to be the higher up leaves. As you go down to the ones like this one, because this is new, That's a keiki actually, isn't it? There, yeah. There's nothing on that. Older, higher leaf, and you tend to have this blackening. Of course, it might also be damage from the spider mites that it had. Yeah, so I'll take you around and you can have a look at this other cane. Another problem with it is it's so heavy, so top heavy, it won't stand up on its own. I have to keep it in a black pot that's quite a heavy black pot to stop it from falling over. But you can see some lovely blooms, and I will focus in on one, and I wonder if, again with some software, I might be able to zoom in a little bit more there so you can see it really closely. Very nice plant. There's another keiki down there, and we've got new growths. There's a new growth coming there, although that could be, that looks like it's coming from the side, so that could be another keiki. So we've got one new growth there, 2 there, 3 there, there's one in the middle, 4. They're coming all over the place, and really I could do with getting it into a bigger pot, but it's getting to the point that, I mean, how big do I want this thing to be? It's huge. It might be a case of thinning everything out, thinning out some of the canes and making a smaller plant. So yeah, that's it. That's my Dendrobium Nobile star class. And if you want to rebloom it, we've gone through all the various things to do to rebloom it. I think I've covered most things, but if you've got any questions, stick it in the comments. And if you know exactly which star class this one is, then I will be interested to know. So that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.